David was a typical teenager. He was rude, disrespectful, and always seemed to be glued to his smartphone. His parents tried to talk to him and guide him in the right direction, but he just ignored them, thinking he knew better. David's mother, who worked part-time to help make ends meet, was his biggest supporter. She always believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. But one day, tragedy struck. David's mother was killed in a car accident by a drunk driver. David was devastated, and so was his father, who worked long hours to provide for his family. When David's father received the news about his wife's death, he was at work. The shock was too much for him to handle, and he suffered a massive heart attack and died on the same day. David was left alone and lost, not knowing what to do next. He was forced to move into an orphanage since he was still under 18 and had no income. At the orphanage, he was bullied by other kids, and he finally realized how wrong he had been in the way he treated his parents. He felt so guilty for all the times he had disrespected them, and he cried himself to sleep many nights, thinking about his parents and the life he could have had if he had only listened to them. When David turned 18, he was released from the orphanage, but he had no education or job prospects. He began working as a busboy in a restaurant, barely making enough to pay for his small studio apartment. He spent most of his free time drinking and smoking, trying to numb the pain and guilt he felt. David got married, hoping to start a new life, but the marriage failed, and he was left with nothing. He had to pay child support for his 1-year-old son, leaving him with barely enough money to survive. He continued to drink and smoke, not taking care of himself, and his health began to suffer. One day, David suddenly lost his eyesight while walking down the street. He panicked and passed out on the street. When he woke up, the doctors told him he was diabetic and needed medication, but David didn't take the diagnosis seriously and left without getting the help he needed. One night, David sat in his small apartment, drinking and smoking, thinking about his parents and the life he could have had. He suddenly realized that his parents were the only ones who had ever truly loved him, and he broke down in tears. He felt so guilty for all the times he had disrespected them, and he wished he could turn back time and make things right. In a moment of despair, David jumped out of the third-floor window, falling to the ground headfirst. He died instantly. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in front of a bright light, with 2 angels and his parents standing in front of him. The angels asked David's parents if they knew him, and they replied that he was their only son. The angels asked if they wanted to take him with them, but his parents said no. They couldn't forgive him for all the pain and hurt he had caused them. David begged and begged for forgiveness, crying uncontrollably. The angels asked one last time if his parents wanted to take him with them before David was left